Chancellor, whenever you think it's appropriate to start, but I know we need Monica, so you just tell me.
Yeah, just go ahead and begin, sir. And if you are done and Dr. Torres is not in, we could simply go to items 3 and 4, and I'll take those. And we'll
Okay. Okay, perfect. Welcome everyone. Gabriel Buelna, President of the Board of the Los Angeles Community College District. We are, even though most of us know each other, it's still important to formally introduce ourselves, especially since we are recording this and making the recording today available on the LACCD YouTube page. And for those joining us live and for those of you viewing this taped, I'm just going to go through the agenda very quickly. So we are going to go through the preliminary results of English language course survey, community survey. We're going to discuss the pilot project winter session, and many grant proposals related to the in-language courses, update on the California Community League presentation that's being conducted by Ms. Meredith Karish, myself, and Chancellor Rodriguez. And then various voices and partners, nonprofit organizations. Then discussion needs on monolingual community. And then we'll summarize. So we have a hefty agenda. We're going to try and do that all between 60 minutes and 90 minutes. Let's get started.
So, Ben, is Dr. Torres in the room?
Yes, I believe she is.
Oh, wonderful. There you are. Dr. Torres, how are you? We want to start this.
I'm well, thank you very much. Thank you
Good.
for having me. I apologize. I
Not
kept
at all.
getting
Not at all.
kicked out.
We welcome you here. Let me tee this up just a little bit. As this committee knows well, and as we presented to the board back in September, we conducted some surveying of students and now community as to their interests, their propensities, and their likelihood of taking in-language courses. Back in the late summer, our Office of Research conducted a survey that was responded to by about 2,500 or so students. We shared some of the results with this body at our last meeting, and also shared with our Board of Trustees at its September meeting that there was some interest in language courses. So what we thought we would do was pair the student voices that were derived from that particular survey and asking the Social Quest group, which has done other work for us here in the district, to engage in a community survey with asking questions and whatnot as to what would be an audience for types of courses, the modality of courses, the subject matters that they'd like to study, and what should we keep in mind as we move through this particular process of trying to be more responsive to the needs of persons, potential students, community members who speak languages other than English. So what we're going to be presenting to you today are the preliminary results from a community survey that took place by Social Quest. So Dr. Torres is the CEO and founder of Social Quest. She will review some of the findings and then have a discussion with you all about what we discovered. So Dr. Torres, let me pass the floor to you and welcome again to this Ad-Hoc committee meeting. Welcome again.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Perfect. So let me first and foremost thank all of you for giving me the time to go through this high-level top finding reports. So one of the things that we did is that we conducted a quantitative survey at the request of the Chancellor and Trustee Buelna. One of the major objectives for this survey was to really explore Los Angeles County residents. We wanted to understand the sentiments and the community attitudes towards in-language courses for non-English speaking populations. And the way that we did that is that, and I'm going to go right here because it gives you a little bit. The way that we did that is that we did a methodological hybrid approach, meaning that we did online panels that people could opt in, and we also did telephone surveys for Spanish-speaking populations. We had a total sample size of 1,500 completes, which were sourced, as I said, from an online panel in a privacy-compliant telephone survey home. The sample size were 250 Spanish dominants, 250 African American, 250 Asian American, Pacific Islanders, 250 bilingual or English dominant Latinos, and the remaining 500 completes were not in any of those 4 groups. The total sample was weighted to represent Los Angeles demographics because we wanted to quota this particular groups because we wanted to understand their attitudes, but then they were weighted. And they were weighted in terms of income, age, gender, and household size. The sample was then proportionate to LA County residents as defined by the census. The survey was available both in English and in Spanish. Now, the field work was conducted between October 7th and October 19th. And one of the, I'm going to present very high levels and then we can engage in a discussion. The full report will be available very soon. One of the most interesting finding is that regardless of political persuasion, 8 out of 10 LA County residents are in support of Los Angeles Community College District adding in-language classes to their curriculum. The survey also revealed a high level of interest in taking very particular classes, and I will go over those with you in a minute. So why in-language classes are needed? We broke it down just for this high level presentation. So 57% of Los Angeles County speak a language other than English. 52% of LA County residents are interested or know someone who would be interested in taking an in-language community college or vocational class. 7 in 10 students, so 71%, currently enroll in community college or vocational program are personally interested in taking in-language courses. 63% of those who are planning to attend community college would also like to take an in-language class. If anyone has a question, you're more than happy to ask me as I go along. 1/3 of previous students, either they dropped out or they left school, they would consider returning to community college to take an in-language course. 44% of students currently attending community college or a vocational program agree that language is a major barrier to successfully entering and finishing school. Trying to go down a little bit. So, oh, sorry about that. Something's blocking my screen. There you go. So how do we position this communication? Or how to position the addition of in-language courses? We ask our surveyors, what they thought was an important thing to consider. And the majority of LA County residents strongly agree that community college should be accessible to all, regardless of language skills. Most see the role of community college or vocational schools as a way to boost the economy by providing skilled workers, preparing students to find better jobs. So job placement advancement was one of the major reasons. In fact, the leading reason given for taking in language classes is for a better job opportunity or career advancement. Support is contingent, though, upon no new taxes and no reduction in the number of English language courses offered. What classes to offer in language should have some amount of in-person. They want hybrid. They want online, and some of the individuals also wanted to attend in person. So a hybrid approach would be the most effective. Spanish language business and general education classes would be most popular in all locations. But noted that we have 500 Latinos as opposed to the other ones, 250 Spanish dominant, 250 bilingual. So we should put that into context. Spanish language was 57% of adults in LA County speak a language other than English, and Spanish is the most common at 45%. LACD campus ranks number 1 as a desired campus to attend. I'm gonna just show you. When I was talking about support, we asked them, would you support or oppose community college and vocational classes taught in a language other than English if? So as I mentioned, there are some restrictions to their support or their contingent upon no new taxes and don't take away any English courses. And then in terms of all of the campuses offer, LACD ranked number 1 at 24%, but I wouldn't really their support across all of them because there's not that much statistical differences between them. As you can see, 24, 21, 20, 19%. And the other classes that they wanted to take, so they varied. I have a much more complex table that I will present in the full report because we saw some variations depending on age and depending on ethnicity. So the classes that they wanted to take were contingent upon certain variables and demographics. But generally, the classes that they would like are business, finance, real estate, general education, medical health science, nursing, information technology. And as you can see, they are very close in percentile. So, there's not a statistical difference between 18 and 19%, and it goes all the way to 39%. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen. And those are very high level findings for you. I will have the full report and be presenting it, I believe, to all of you next week.
Okay, great. Dr. Buelna, would you like to take some questions now?
Yeah, well, just real quick, I also want to acknowledge my second vice president, Nichelle Henderson, who's also with us today. Welcome, Nichelle. She's still here, right? Yeah, she's still here. So that was it. Questions, comments? Tantra, as you see folks too, you have better vision.
One of the things that surprised us is that the findings from the community polling really mirror the internal survey that you did. So we had very similar kind of answers, which is always very good. You were going to ask me a question?
Yes, Dr. Torres. I'm gonna make an assumption in regards to where the students want to take the classes, that it correlates to where they're at as far as their living situation, because I don't think students from Harbor would want to go all the way to city or vice versa. I just wanted to make sure that that was, if you could correlate that, because with the statement that you made was that students want to take the classes, the majority at city.
No, what I said is that LA City has the highest interest in taking in language courses, not that they necessarily want to go take them there. But when we looked at the colleges, it ranked very high. But as I told you, it will depend on where they live, of course, and how close they are. But there's also not a lot of statistical variation. So most of your campuses had a lot of support. There was no campus that didn't, that had students that did not want to take in language courses.
Thank you. And then I might have missed one of the disciplines, which was child development. I didn't see it on the list.
I think child development is definitely on the list.
Was it? Okay, I missed it.
I'll take a look at it, but we did a preliminary qualitative study prior to doing the survey. So we had many focus groups. And I know that on all of the focus group that we had, child development came up very much as a desired course. So did, some mental health, some public health, and it was really tied or integrated to individuals' desire to want to give back to their community and their identity. And they felt that by attending community college, they could really give back to their own communities. So they wanted to study certain areas and topics where they felt that their community needed them most. So that's a great point that you brought that up, because it was very much all students talked about it when we did this, the focus groups.
And sorry, last question. The other one's culinary arts that I didn't see on the list as well. And I might have missed it also.
I have it right here. Let me just check really quickly. Okay, so.
And the reason I'm asking is those are the ones we're considering at Arbor.
Arts, design, energy. It isn't in the list. So I'll take a look at where they fell on that list.
Thank you, Dr. Torres.
Of course. I'm going to make myself a note, so.
President Buelna, Michelle Felt has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Felt, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Oh, Olga. Hi, Olga.
Oh, I thought it was a different person altogether. Thank you. My question is rather simple, but is me trying to understand something that I have received already feedback from students and from faculty. There's a little bit of information fatigue among a lot of people. And so I was just wondering if you can share, if you have not done already, so how did we come out to, let's say, do the PR for the students to answer the survey? 1,500 people is an important sample, but it's rather small when you think of all the people we educate. So I was just wondering, how often did we send the message for the students? Who sent it? Did we capture the people we needed to capture?
Yeah, we did, as I told you, an opt-in online sample. We obviously had to reach many more individuals than 1,500 to get complete, but they also receive an incentive to complete either the telephone interview or the online survey. So we reached LA County residents in general. And then we weighted them, as I told you, because we didn't do it internally through your department. The student survey that your department did went to your students. We actually were independent and wanted to be independent from any college association, because we wanted to ask the community whether they are what are the sentiments about community college offering in-language courses. So it was a community, almost you can think about it as a community polling and survey. And so because we wanted to capture, because this was followed by a qualitative research study, we already had some ideas of certain issues. And so we put our knowledge in there, and we knew that we wanted to oversample, for example, African Americans. We needed a robust enough sample to be able to detect statistical differences between these groups, if there were any. So we wanted, a margin of plus or minus 4%. And I can tell you the margins when I deliver the full report.
I think that's always important in any research project to put that information out there. So when you say that we reach out to LA County residents, I mean, there are 10 million people in the county. So how many people did you reach out to?
Total to get complete, I can get you that number.
Yeah, not for me, but for everyone, because we will be asked those questions as well. So that would be great.
Yes, that's a great question. I'll tell you how many refusals we had, because that would give you an idea of how many people we had to reach in order to get 15 complete.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Are we missing someone, Chancellor, that may have their hand up?
No, I think you got them all. We should probably keep the agenda moving. Dr. Torres, thank you.
You're welcome. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go to another meeting, but I thank you so very much for your time. And thank you for the feedback. I'll get all the answers that you have ready and put them in the report. They were great questions. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Take care. Okay, so we keep moving on, Dr. Buelna? Okay, all right. So let's, so based on what you've heard back in the earlier parts of the meetings that we've had, and the results of this most recent community survey, the preliminary results student survey, we had talked about at this district conducting a pilot of sorts during the winter session, where we could indeed put together some courses that were in language that corresponded with some of the needs that we heard students and community members respond to, and that were already in the curriculum or could be easily adapted to curriculum that we already have. The winter session, as you're aware, begins in early January and runs for 5 weeks. So it gives it a nice sample opportunity, sample size to test proof of concept. So we've asked our college presidents with their vice president of instruction, working with their deans and faculty, to put together some ideas as to what these courses could look like beginning in January. So let me turn it now to Dr. Albo Lopez, who can give a summary of some of the offerings that we're looking at for winter session 2023. So Dr. Albo Lopez, let me pass it to you, please.
Great, thank you. I'll just share my screen if I can. And so far, I've been able to compile, after conversations with our CIOs, offerings that are in the works for winter and then possibly in the spring. And then some of our campuses are still having conversations and figuring out exactly what this looks like. And I believe Chancellor will touch base later on maybe some opportunities for some mini grants. But West LA College is going to be offering high school equivalency test prep in Spanish, some student success courses, construction inspection, and child development on the credit side. And then Trade Tech will be offering, at this point, all non-credit courses and things such as basic computer literacy, some culinary arts courses. Mission College plans to be offering in the winter their GED program in a bilingual format, and is looking at expanding other offerings in the future, but we'll be doing a child development series bilingually in Spanish in the spring. Pierce College is planning to have GED in Spanish during the winter. Harbor College has computer basics that's taught bilingually, and they are looking to expand into the credit side with statistics and child development. And then on the non-credit side, GED and small business entrepreneurship. East Los Angeles is still in discussions, and from what I'm hearing from that team, possibly some courses to be determined in the language of Mandarin in the spring. Southwest is still in discussions, as is Valley and City College. So we still, have work to do outside of the pilot that will be operating in spring. And by midweek this week, we will have a flyer ready to be able to send out to constituents across the campus communities so that they can begin enrolling in courses. And I'll be working with Juliet Hidalgo, our PIO, to be sharing the information broadly as well. So I can answer any questions if there are any.
President Roman?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Alvo Lopez, President Buelna and team. We do have an update more on ELAC. If I can just share quickly, we had the Academic Senate approve the guide for selecting faculty to teach non-credit courses and languages other than English last week. And we're gonna have a welcome and orientation day for winter. Some of the offers will be at Southgate, and it will be at the end of the month from 11 to 7 p.m. We really want to provide a good orientation for folks, but we are going to expand in some areas. For example, the certificate programs. We do plan to offer workplace readiness as completely in Spanish, nutrition and health, lifestyle, some preparation for early childhood development programs. We're also going to shoot for a high school preparation exam course. It'll be a basic skills. And then some health professions, sort of preparation courses as well, and then home health care aid, as well as small business entrepreneurial and registration and accounting and booking. So all of this came kind of to the tail end. So Vice Chancellor Lopez, you don't have this, but we'll send it your way as well. But we do plan to have a pretty robust winter, both in monolingual and bilingual classes in these areas. So I'll forward those on to you as well, but just got the update very recently. So my apologies for not having it for today.
Thank you.
Dr. Culpepper, I see your hand. Welcome.
Thank you, Chancellor. Vice Chancellor Lopez, we do have a couple of courses that will be offered in the winter. We have the citizenship courses that will be offered monolingual, and also the high school equivalency courses. They will be offered in the winter as well as the spring. Those are some recent updates for Southwest.
Great, thank you. The list keeps growing. Wonderful. Thank you for the leadership there, and to all the faculty who are looking at these courses as ways to expand our reach and expand the interest that correspond with some of the language and words that we've been hearing about, that they would indeed be an interest. Are there any other college presidents that'd like to give any updates, or others from the campuses on the curriculum potential offerings for winter session?
I have a question, Chancellor, maybe the president is before that, Mr. Pettis had a question.
Okay. Professor, how are you? Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. We do have not for winter, but we're planning on offering the GED in spring. So we're hiring as of right now. We just have to go through that process, but our classes are already scheduled for the spring. So
excellent.
I'm not sure how the update was sent to you guys, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that out.
Okay, wonderful. It sounds like that's a common course that's being offered throughout the district.
Yeah, we got the classes from Mission, so.
Excellent. The benefit of having curriculum already developed, you just take it to your local review and approval process. Excellent. Other thoughts, reactions?
I do have a question for the president. How is the discussion occurring on the campuses with regard to teaching in languages other than colleges? What's the feedback, pushback, either way?
For President Buelna, for Harbor, it's been well received, and we're just working on it. And so there's a lot of opportunities for Harbor.
So yeah. President Roman.
Oh, sorry, President Buelna. Similar to Harbor, I think they're well received, and you saw the Senate was very positive about these courses. So as we're vetting this through the campus, so far it's been very favorable. And given the data that we're working with, I think we see there's a definite need and interest. So the committees that are discussing this have been very open to it, and they see tremendous opportunity here in terms of expanding enrollment and reaching communities that otherwise have not been reached in the past. So far it's been well received.
President Aguilar?
Hi, good afternoon. Same at Pierce, similar to Harbor and East. We've had the conversations with the Senate, and it's been positive and encouraging. And as a matter of fact, I know that our Senate President is here in this meeting, being supportive of this process. And it's just the issue of finding the right faculty, making sure that we are following the protocol in terms of minimum qualifications and things. Those have been the discussion points.
I think the poll showed that no one is looking to remove English as the language that's used to teach. Is it becoming, is anyone getting pushback from people who are saying we should stick to English? Bill? You were expelled from somewhere?
No, I'm not getting any pushback from it. My only issue will be do we have any kinds of, I don't know how fast we can do this. It's like it's taking 3 months now on fast track to get a new adjunct, period. This will take even longer because you have to advertise specifically into an area of the language you need. I mean, Spanish, probably not too terribly hard to get. The other, different languages, it's going to take a while to even hire an adjunct. And then have we even had any discussions on what does that mean? What kind, will they come in with exactly the same seniority right if they get bumped out of their class? How will that, if I hire someone to teach it and they get bumped by someone else, we haven't talked anything about that kind of stuff yet. And that would be problematic if someone that doesn't speak Spanish bumps into a Spanish only class and we don't have any kind of MOUs or language in that, how we're going to deal with any of that. So it just seems to me, winter seems to be an awfully ambitious goal to have it ready for winter. See if you call my name again.
Well, I'll call you. Chancellor, you're probably better to respond to Mr. Bill.
Well, Bill, I think we've got the instructors assigned for these particular courses. If I understand your question correctly, as we move towards the future, should this take off and should there be additional demand, then your points are actually well-founded. But my understanding is that these are existing instructors with existing curriculum that will be offered this winter session. That's what, 7-8 weeks away. So.
Okay, I have one that we've been doing for quite a few years now. So that is, as long as that's kind of the goal, but
yeah, it is.
Okay.
Well, again, this is a pilot, Bill. We'll see if there's traction, and we hope that there will be. We've had some good traction over at Trade Tech, as you know, through your ALAS programs and others that have taken place. Very impressive. So we have some models to build on. And we'll see whether again, an opportunity for us to extend our reach and provide what has been educational opportunity to a very underserved population. And we're looking at or referring to the Spanish language as perhaps being most dominant, but this is obviously available to other languages as well, should there be demand. And given Los Angeles's multilingual location, that there could be other multiple languages other than Spanish.
Well, I'm in complete support, but I think we probably should have a meeting very quickly about at least an MOU to deal with how do you intend to deal with the current contract rights. These aren't, it's what are we going to do with it if it bumps out? If we follow our contract, are we giving them a special pilot protection? What are we going to do? But it's something that the union and us need to probably decide before they kick off in winter. Now, winter probably okay for winter because there's no bumping in winter, so I don't think it's a huge issue. But just I think it's something we need to settle before we move forward and try to grow it.
Okay, good point there, Bill.
Chancellor, a quick question: How are we going to? Are we going to have one landing page for the classes, and in language, will it say Is there going to be a specific thing in the online catalog? How will students know, or PR be handled for that?
Let me ask Dr. Alba Lopez. These are courses that we would normally offer in winter. So let me ask her to share how we would display the offerings, please.
So I will be working with PIO Hidalgo to be able to create a one-page, I guess, a flyer that we'll be doing in both English and Spanish. Now, in the actual course catalog that we have up online for students to select courses, notes are made for students to be able to search, which would identify them as being either bilingual or monolingual or in language learning. But I believe that the information that we collect for all campuses will be shared, and they will be able to post those on their websites. And we'll also be doing an email distribution to students within the district.
Perfect. It's not like we're going to look every day to see how these classes are being filled. You know, some trustees won't be asking that. I'm just kidding.
We'll be monitoring as well.
President
Chancellor, I also want to suggest that we can leverage the Elder Tree Adult Ed campaign and include the landing page as part of the advertisement for these courses.
Good thought. That's a good one. Okay, so we will note that as well. All right, so there are no other questions here. Let's move on to the next item. And as was mentioned earlier, we do believe that there will be some added attention and interest in this area. And we may not have curriculums already developed for some of the areas that will deem to be popular for students and those that are serve their interests. So we are looking now to put the mechanism in place so that we can provide stipends and support to members of the faculty who write curriculum, to expand the curriculum in areas that we don't have and whatnot. So I wanted to share that. We'll be putting together the contours of that, the parameters of that. It's consistent with what you've seen opportunities with others who have written curriculum in the past. We do know that some of this work lies within the purview of the faculty's current responsibilities, but this is an extra effort that we're making to try to incentivize, support, and recognize areas that could be very, very beneficial to the colleges and ultimately to the district and to the communities that we're serving. So that is, so I wanted to share that. More to follow on that. We've got the pilot that's, moving forward. And as we start to hopefully have a very successful pilot and expand this program, I wanted to share and that we will be looking towards some opportunities for faculty to write curriculum. So I wanted to share that and see if there are any questions anybody had on that.
Chancellor, there was a question in the chat, I think, about not bills, but someone said if I guess the descriptions, if the descriptions in the sections will be in those languages as well. So I think if on East they're going to do Mandarin, is it going to be in English and in Mandarin the description? So it seemed like a good question.
Okay, so we will note that as part of the advertising and marketing for these courses. Makes sense. Any questions at all on the other piece here? That's typically how we expand curriculum or amplify existing curriculum and give people opportunity to lend their expertise to this endeavor.
May I ask a quick question for Dr. Buelna?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, let me put my video. So I think someone is asking a question that we might receive in other colleges or even outside of the colleges. Is there any way you can address this question by Miss or Mr. West?
What's the question?
question is, how are we not developing a new, more talented underclass and further fragmenting society by making it possible to never learn to communicate in an English-speaking world?
I'll answer that from my perspective. I can't answer it for the board. What I would say is that this is simply looking at the market, looking at populations that otherwise wouldn't be attending a community college. No one is saying that folks shouldn't learn English. Question is, how do you add capacity into society? The alternative is to do what we're doing is where that capacity isn't growing, and folks are saying, and we also live in a country that's a free country, and folks can decide to do what they ultimately want. And if we have sufficient numbers in the population that need that capacity of building within their languages, there's nothing in the US Constitution or the California Constitution that would prohibit it. Did I answer the question?
Yes, and thank you very much. It's just good for all of us to acknowledge that question and to know what is the perspective that everybody has. We all have a perspective, but you've been the leader on this issue. So,
right. And let me be a little more direct. English only is an ideology. It's an ideology that's been very, very harmful to populations. So no one is saying no English. No one is saying get rid of English. We are in a population that speaks many languages, and since the founding of the U.S. Republic and California, we've always done things in multiple languages. And we're also in a competitive state with the fourth largest economy, where our trading partners are non-English speaking countries, including Asia and Latin America. So to not offer classes in other languages is putting us at a competitive disadvantage as well. See what happens when you ask me a question, Olga, just like Bill.
thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And I would just add this thought that language is identity. And when we negate language, we negate person's identity. And what we try to do is to recognize the whole person when we educate them, including their language and their language capabilities. And we view whatever their native tongue might be as value added.
If Chancellor, Trustee Henderson, would you like to add to that? Because I'm one of 7, and, so your voice is important to this as well. You're still muted.
Sorry, I lost my screen. In terms of the language capability, I think said to give members of the community that are not enrolling in community college a foray into community college. So these courses are taught in their language to give them that content area knowledge, and that is a bridge to our English only classes. So my personal feeling is that anyone that would be against this would be against all of the discussions that we've had around improving and increasing enrollment and providing access to our students. Thank you.
Ms. Pirado, then Bill.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. I am Margarita Pillado. I teach Spanish, and I am also the second vice president of Peers Academic Senate and the curriculum committee chair. So I am very interested in the monolingual education, and especially in the subject of creating or updating the existing curriculum to address this need. And my question is, especially because I have at least 5 or 7 classes that are now currently advertised as being taught in English that actually could be easily taught in Spanish. But I always had the understanding that we were restricted by Title V in terms of offering these classes in a language other than English. And I'm talking specifically about classes in which our students enroll, and they are, for the most part, Spanish-speaking Latino students or highly or students in advanced Spanish who would rather take the class in Spanish and read the text in Spanish. So how can we very easily, we have the curriculum, we just need to schedule it. And how could we do that? Are we not restricted by Title V's expectations that another section of the class will be offered in English? Because if we are not restricted any longer, I would be happy to advertise this curriculum as in Spanish.
Chancellor, I believe that's a general counsel question, or what's your thought?
Well, is the question? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, General Counsel. Pardon me.
Thank you, Chancellor. The pilot program that is being proposed right now is consistent with Title V, with the Education Code, and most importantly, as both the Chancellor and President Buelna and Trustee Henderson articulated, it's consistent with the federal law that requires that these educational programs be made available to all students. In fact, California Education Code specifically mandates that the college make programs available to underrepresented communities. So I'm not sure when we say no longer permitted, but it is consistent with the existing legal requirements.
But to specifically address Ms. Pilado's question, I think and Chancellor, if you allow me to, because Chancellor and I have had a ton of conversations about this. We've had a go slow approach on this process to make sure that we do the community survey, we do legal analysis, community survey, or student survey, community survey, and we're also having more and more legal conversations in order to give the complete green light. And it's kind of like a yellow light, Ms. Pilado. It's not a green light. I'm not sure if General Counsel would agree with that, but we are being careful to make sure that no rule is being broken.
Yes, I would agree with that, President Buelna. I mean, there is absolutely, as we've heard and we've seen, there are arguments that are made stating that all these courses should be English only and or be coupled with some bilingual or ESL component to it. And so that argument is out there. There are individuals who will continue to believe that that is the only and appropriate way to provide these courses. We don't believe that that's the case. And so as President Buelna stated, we are proceeding very cautiously, both in terms of the legal perspective, the demand for these courses, and having the conversation with faculty and the bargaining units as we need to.
And hence, Bill.
I just wanted to add back one speaker to Trustee Henderson. At least I can't speak for the rest of the district, but I can speak for the CTE programs at Trade. There's some of that about pushback and things. We never had that. It was similar to what we got with the non-credit eating out or eating the credit programs. But what actually came out in the last almost 10 years that we've been doing it is exactly what was stated. These were students that never would have come to our campus in the first place. And when they did, they were exposed to the campus and other programs. And what we did see was an actual increase in the non-credit, and then followed shortly thereafter, a good majority of those students would come over to the credit programs. So it actually overall was a positive. We never had any downturns in any of the programs. So granted, it's my construction trades, and it may be unique to that, I don't know, but it didn't happen with the high school outreach programs. It didn't happen with the Spanish only non-credit, didn't even happen with the English non-credit. So I would not anticipate it happening here either. So that was it. I just wanted to say that was the experience Trade had over almost the last 10 years of doing this.
Should we move on, Chancellor?
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you for the dialogue and suggestions, questions. Let's move on now to the next part of the agenda, which relates to our workshop that will be presented at this year's annual league conference up in the Bay Area. That'll take place this Saturday from 8 till 9:15 a.m. So if you happen to be up there for the annual CCLC or league convention, we certainly would invite you to attend that. We're going to pass it now to Meredith Karash, who is part of the team who will be presenting, along with Dr. Buelna, Dr. Torres, and myself. Again, if you're in at the league convention and are planning to attend, we invite you to join us on Saturday morning. So Meredith, let me pass it to you, and please give us a sense of what that presentation will be like.
Well, it'll of course be a PowerPoint presentation. It will be a lot of fun though. I think it'll be well attended, even though it's at 8 in the morning. I think we're going to start out, we'll start out with a little bit of context. And then as Dr. Buelna had said, the last time we talked about it, we're going to talk about the legal background and that this is a possibility, that these classes are a possibility under the Education Code and under state and federal law. And then I think we are going to be prepared to take a lot of questions from what I expect to be a pretty inquisitive audience. I've talked to a couple of other clients about the nature of this presentation, and they seem to be very excited about it.
All right. We will have Pan Dulce, and Maria Velos is trying to get a mariachi there as well. But we'll see if that happens. And if you're up there in Sacramento, and I think we're trying to tape it to put on YouTube. I think. Go ahead.
Oh, well, we can talk about it. CCLC isn't going to let us do that. Sorry. I spoke to them, I begged them, but we would be the only ones being videotaped.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
President Buelna, you also said Sacramento and it's San Francisco.
Oh.
I think everyone knows.
Yes, San Francisco. Okay. All right. Bill, did you still have a question, or is that the same, or you just have permanent questions?
I'm just permanently questioning everything.
Of course. You wouldn't be Bill. Next item, Chancellor.
This is where you have the open forum. If you wanted to open up to anybody for questions or feedback, we've got several folks who are online here. We've got 43 persons, just an opportunity to have folks weigh in on any of the subject matters that we haven't discussed thus far. Anyone would like to begin? Questions, comments? So just an open part of the agenda.
Ms. Gallegos, how did it go? How has it gone? How did it go at West?
Well, we have already our Spanish CD1 class being offered, so we're excited about that. And with the component of ESL non-credit to be complementary to our class, even though I know we don't need it, but nonetheless, we're trying to comply with everybody. So everybody feels that we are following the law of the land. But like Maribel Medina just said, it's really not necessary. But West is, we're doing it. We're currently, I have also Dr. Where is Lori Marr? She's also here and she teaches the sciences, and she's looking to how she can teach her class in Spanish as well. So right now we're still pushing ahead because we really know we have enrollment there and we have a population that needs it and wants it. So we're excited.
You are the first, I think, kind of implementer of this. I mean, I know Bill will say that he's been doing it for 10 years. But am I correct that what you guys did with the high school curriculum was the first? Ms. Gallegos?
Of doing the Spanish completion, yes, that we're including it because a lot of our high school students feel much more comfortable also in Spanish. So right now is really looking at the minimum quals. I know a couple of our colleagues brought that up of how is that going to work, and especially right now what Bill was saying in regards to if once it gets popular, not if, but once it becomes popular and we have so many classes, how is the union going to be part of that dialogue? And so we have to discuss that. But right now, I just want to be able to get the right professor where those qualifications won't become, tested and then said that professor wasn't allowed to teach the class because they didn't have a Spanish background. That's me because I want to teach it. I don't have a Spanish background except, being born here, but have Mexican parents and speak Spanish very frequently and proficiently. But nonetheless, my background is in child development. So does that make me not eligible to teach the class? I fulfill the minimum quals of child development, but not in Spanish. So that's another question that people keep asking me about. So yeah.
All right. Ms. Nalepa, then Ruby, then Kevin.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification from Ms. Medina. The question was asked about whether this policy going forward was consistent with Title V. And you said that there had been an argument to be made about whether or not the class needs to be in English only or coupled with an ESL class. And I heard you say we're proceeding cautiously. I didn't know if that meant that the argument was not valid or that those were valid arguments, so we were still proceeding cautiously.
It is, I understand that that's the interpretation that any course that's offered, even at a community college that's monolingual, and being taught to an individual that's monolingual is, there was a previous interpretation that it had to be coupled with an ESL or a bilingual course. The same argument was made that if an individual was bilingual, that individual was legally entitled to take a monolingual class. That interpretation, in our legal opinion, is not consistent with federal law, and specifically the Equal Protection Clause. It is also not consistent, in our legal opinion, with the Education Code that specifically requires educational entities, including the community colleges, to provide these educational opportunities to underrepresented communities. So we are not dismissing the fact that there are individuals that will make the argument that this program that we are piloting is not consistent with the Education Code. We don't believe that to be the case. We believe it is legally defensible, and in fact that this pilot program is more consistent with federal law than the previous interpretation. But we are acknowledging that a court of law has not made this determination yet, but we feel very strongly that continuing to have the interpretation that courses can only be taught in English and may be taught in monolingual to someone who's bilingual, but not to someone who's monolingual, is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ruby, then Kevin.
So I think this is very exciting. I know that at one point I had the opportunity to teach in a graduate program that was all in Spanish, the entire program, to become a licensed psychologist. And there were reasons for this, because you understand the culture by understanding the language. And so I think this could be very exciting in terms of classes that would be in ethnic studies and in other areas where it would be particularly important, to have knowledge of the language. And so I'm just wondering with Maribel, with the legal opinion, if it would be possible to have, per se, an ethnic studies class that would be in, Spanish, if that would be allowable, in this situation, because I think that would be a very powerful class to have.
What we're going to recommend, and again, as we had indicated before, we're proceeding, when we say we're proceeding cautiously, it's not only for purposes of the legal argument before a court, but also because we We do have to consult with your respective faculty. We do have to look at the bargaining agreements. We do have to look at the need. So my recommendation is that we continue to work through Dr. Albo Lopez as you identify potential courses. And then we will review them to make sure that that the course, the way they're being offered they're permitted and legally defensible from all lenses. So that might be a better approach than trying to give a legal opinion here on the spot on a proposed course.
Right, because the other issue would be that someone had mentioned earlier was minimum quals. The union is not the one that sets the minimum quals, as you know, it is the state, right? It's the state legislature that sets the minimum quals, not the union. Thank you.
Ms. King?
Thank you, President Buelna. I was thinking about other research that Dr. Torres has done to show us how we can be most accessible to students and community. And one of her recommendations is, when possible, have some consistency in our courses across our colleges, so students who wish to attend more than one are able to do so. Forgive me if this is already in the works, but this sounds like another opportunity as we update or launch new curriculum to also find some consistency for ease of students across our campuses. I guess my question is that also a possibility, to make that a question and not a statement?
I think this is an Alba Lopez question.
And looking at the research, there's opportunity in multiple venues. And so I've written this down as something to explore further, but I really like the thinking that you're putting forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Chancellor, I'm not seeing any other comments or questions. What were the other items on the agenda?
Just if there's anything else, we sort of commingled. Well, I see Professor.
Ms. Vidal.
Yes, yes, thank you. I mean, I'm processing all this, and I am trying to maybe to present some point for consideration. And one of them is the distinction between native ability and literacy. Because we do know that our students, you know, for the majority, we can say that we live in a society full of native English speakers who are not literate, right? That's why they need the classes, they need the English, they need math skills. I teach the heritage Spanish speakers who also are very comfortable talking the everyday language, but they lack that professional college level language skills and writing skills in that language. So, for example, I am envisioning how we are going to maybe teach a business class or a intro to hospitality. I could not teach intro to hospitality, even though I am a proficient speaker and an academic. I cannot teach hospitality in Spanish or business or finance or math. I could teach, of course, grammar and writing in English and Spanish because of my minimum qualifications in both languages. So I think that we need to think about that. We need to think about that there is that distinction between literacy and the ability to speak and communicate in a language, and there are different registers. And as we plan the curriculum, we hire the faculty, we need to think about those items.
Thank you, Ms. Vidal. Any other comments?
I would just like to second what Professor Pujado just mentioned. Again, having a bachelor's degree in Spanish, I can tell you how, as a Spanish speaker, it was very humbling to go through that experience. Because even though I was a native speaker, I appreciated my grammar teachers and being able to teach me how to write properly in Spanish, how to speak properly in Spanish. And there's a big difference. And I mentioned this at the beginning of this, when we first started meeting, is I think we will do a disservice to our students if we don't hire the right people. So I hope, and I really want to advocate for them in that we do the hiring properly without taking shortcuts, because it's going to be extremely important that we do that right. So anything I can provide, I will be happy to be a part of those meetings, but please make sure that we do that correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. And let me add to that. You know, my full-time job is as a family and criminal law attorney, and I learned Spanish on my own, literally just picking up the book. Even though Spanish is my first language, but that formal language, you know, I almost got, you know, it hit me when I had to be in family court and speak formal Spanish, or you know, or traveling for business in that formal Spanish, like Ms. Villado said. That's and how to conduct yourself in business. I wish I had this earlier in my career. I would have loved to have taken a law class in Spanish to appreciate that. And if you're living in the Americas, you kind of have to, or you're losing business. But I'll leave it at that. Any final comments, Chancellor?
No, I think we've had a good meeting today where we reviewed some of the preliminary results from the survey that was done by Social Quest, surveying our community on potential courses. And again, we're trying to determine audience, modality, subject, and whatnot. So that's so we'll look forward to her final report the next few weeks. We mentioned, and Dr. Albo Lopez shared some of the courses that will be piloted this winter session with throughout our campuses. So thank you all for your leadership on that. Again, this is a pilot, trying to assess need, take, interest, and then ultimately impact on students. And we'll be advertising those courses in the ways that were brought up today. As we look forward to the expansion of this program, we will be looking, and we will outline support for curriculum development that we will make available. We learned that this Saturday we'll have our CCLC workshop that we will be extending, and the visibility of this district and of our faculty and of our curriculum and our tremendous interest in serving our community through in-language course instruction. So we're very, very proud to represent you all and our Los Angeles region to what is a state and national audience. And again, that we do have some follow-ups here with respect to some contractual issues, eligibility, MQs, consultation with faculty, continuing to assess need, and again, safeguard our legal position as we move forward in this. So I think that concludes our meeting, Trustee Buelna, unless you have anything more to add as well.
One last thing, Trustee Henderson, any comment? Any final comment?
Just to thank everybody for their time, and this has been a very productive conversation. So you know, let's remember we need to do a lot less talking and a little more doing and thinking about how things can be done, and not all of the reasons why they shouldn't or can't. But I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. And on behalf of the entire Board of Trustees, who 6 of 7 backed this proposal 100%, and in December 7 of 7. You know, I want to. We're here because the district is the Board of Trustees is supporting this, and it is important to our future and to our region. So and CCLC, you know, we're breaking every single rule, or attempting to break every single rule in order to have. They won't allow our pan dulce, they won't allow the mariachi, they won't allow taping. You know, so maybe we'll just do all those things in a pirated manner and share it on our social media. That being said, thank you everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks everybody. Adios. Buenas tardes.
Thank you.